And speaking of coaches, if we transition into the NBA, we've seen a lot of coaching transitions from a variety of different teams. Do you think that teams are too quick to fire coaches at the NBA professional level?
Yeah, I would agree. Definitely recently with these coach firings, we saw the Memphis Grizzlies head coach. He was fired a couple weeks before the season ended. And then most recently with the Denver Nuggets head coach Mike Malone, he was let go with 3 games left in the season. And he was a coach I think nobody really saw coming for him to be fired, especially when they won the championship 2 seasons ago. So I think I would rather want to see you play the season now and then see what happens. And then maybe from there in the offseason, if you want to make a coaching change to that, I think it's tough on the players and just the overall culture and the vibe of the team when you have a big coaching change like that. I think, like you were saying, we've definitely seen a lot more where coaches they aren't really given a shot. It seems like after a year or two, if things aren't really how the overall organization wants to see it, they're let go. And then we've seen like a lot of championship coaches where like a year or two after they win the championship, they're fired. So the NBAs are definitely a results-driven business. They want to see the organization overall wants to see just your team win and have success. And if there's any step back or if there's not any consistency as far as where you want to be, as far as winning a championship or being in contention for a championship, it seems like the owners and the organization are quick to change. So I think it's definitely just been crazy to see all these coaching changes, especially these last couple of years with coaches that have just won championships being fired a year or two after.
Yeah, definitely. And see, that's the thing about when it comes to firing these coaches is just what's the standard to be fired? You know, you win a championship, you still could be fired. If you're below 500, you could still be fired. If you're in the play-in, you could still be fired. So it's just what's the measure of level of success for a coach to be there kind of long term? Because usually when coaches get hired, they have a new philosophy, a new offensive scheme, new defensive scheme, new X's and O's, and it takes time to build players to accomplish that scheme. Not every player is going to fit the scheme that the new coach is kind of bringing in. So I think that's what you're kind of seeing today. You're seeing coaches have a certain philosophy, but not having a roster to execute that philosophy. And I think that's another reason why there's a certain level of disconnect. But do you think there should be like deadlines for like after a certain day, you can't fire him after this day?
hmm Kind of similar to the NBA trade deadline. You can't trade at. Yeah, I could see that. I think it's tough because I guess the organization, especially the owners, they want to manage their team how they want to. That this is a situation where they really want to get rid of a coach. They do that. I think optically, you don't want to do it with 3 games left in the season or like right towards the end. You would want to, hopefully, the main thing, you want to start your season with the same coach as you ended it, just to have that full continuity. But I think that would be a cool option to have a deadline to where, okay, the team knows, okay, we have our coach, we're all set. We don't have to worry about the coach getting fired right before the playoffs. So I guess that would be nice. I think it also allows your team to really see it through and then for the coach to have those last minute changes. But I think it's going to be tough too because I think the owners are going to say, oh no, we want to have full control. We want to say when things happen because I think with player wise, it's understandable because I guess they're a part of the roster. You have certain moves you don't want, like a big trade to happen like right before the playoffs. Like that would be crazy. But I guess it does make sense with coaches to have just a deadline, okay, to where after a certain time they can't be fired, just so it gives the coaches kind of some leeway, but also gives the team and the players just knowing, okay, we have our coach set.
Right. And I definitely think that we're in definitely a players league. So I think once they lose the locker room, oftentimes the coach is kind of the first one to go. But I think that there's certain times where there's a certain level of accountability that coaches hold star level players and even the bottom person on the roster accountable. And I think that's very important because I think that when certain players are used to, if a way doesn't go their way, pushing out the owner or GM or kind of the head coach, I think that establishes bad habits because sometimes you may come across a coach who's actually trying to get the best out of you. So you're pushing him away when he's trying to make you be great. And I think that when you follow players who have always had issues in certain organizations and left coaches, those are the players that never really tend to excel at a high level at a consistent pace. So I think that sometimes firing a coach because he lost the locker room, he doesn't have a voice, I can understand that, but like firing a coach just because he's trying to hold every player accountable and win a championship and set a standard, that's where it gets a little shaky. And I think once you kind of set the tone as far as if a player's unhappy for ego or lack of self-awareness and you let him go, I think that lets the players on the roster know that championship is not the most important thing here. So, in my humble opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, like you were saying, it's tough when you lose the locker room because that's your main thing as a coach to gather everybody together and really organize the team and try to put them in the best position to win. So when you lose the locker room, it's tough. And like you were saying, usually now, especially with how the amount of money that's invested into the players and how it keeps on increasing year by year, it seems like now, yeah, the coach is going to be the first one, it seems, I guess, from the GM and owner's perspective to go or to have that shift first because it's going to be harder to either trade a player or to have that even that player itself because you want your players happy because if you have your star player that's not happy and they want to request a trade then that even messes up your organization, your team even further. So yeah, it seems like the coaches, especially the recent like 5 or 6 years, it seems where we've heard the common theme of, oh yeah, they lost the locker room. So it's definitely a common thing that we've been seeing over these last couple of years of hearing how they lost the locker room, and then basically once you hear that, is you're really just counting the days until that coach unfortunately is fired or there's a coaching change. So yeah, it's definitely hard just gathering everybody together and getting everybody at one accord. And it's hard winning too. So sometimes you have unfortunate situations or injuries or just things that happen within a season. So it's going to be hard, especially being a coach. But I think they kind of know that getting into it when they first sign on, that these things could happen. So I think they kind of take it with the job. So you kind of see the positives and negatives with coaching. But I think overall, a lot of the coaches just love the game, love the team aspects. I think they would trade that all in, even with all the risks and the possibilities that come with it.
Yeah, definitely. And at least their money's guaranteed, so at least they don't have to deal with just, being out of work. But, if you're a coach, just don't establish permanent roots because even if you win a championship, you could be gone next year. So,
Yeah.
definitely pack light and travel light, kind of thing. But 100%. So do you think that there's a line between coaches actually hating on players as far as like how they are and they operate versus giving them honest critique as far as trying to get them to be better?
Yeah, I think there's a line where depending on how, I think also depending on your delivery, I think you got to also know your players. I think not everybody's going to be able to receive a message the same way. So then you got to really tailor your message and how you communicate with each player. I think that's how you really are able to build a nice championship roster, being able to understand how your players are and how they can best receive a message. Some players, they might need someone to get on at them, need someone to yell at them. Some other players, they might have situation where they might just need to be pulled to the side and like say in a nice calm way and then they're able to grasp that message. So I think there is a line. I think sometimes the lines can get crossed, especially when you're trying to get the ultimate goal and you're trying to really just enforce your own coaching philosophy. So we definitely see that there's different ways where you can communicate. So I think you got to know your players, and sometimes if things are taken the wrong way, that can really cause as a downward spiral. It can really affect your season overall.
I mean, respectfully, if I'm being honest with the people, I don't think you have the right to push back on somebody trying to make you better if you don't have a championship because your way hasn't produced. Not saying that the other way may be right, but my thing is this. If we've never executed on a high level, you have to be open to a new idea to get to that level. And I think that's what separates good players from great players to Hall of Famers. I think there's a distinction in just how they receive messages, but I think that overall, when you break down all aspects of life, whether it's sports, relationship, business, broadcast platform, I think it's just communication at the end of the day and learning how to communicate effectively and efficiently. And sometimes the best communication is no communication at all. So I think that some people, as we was talking about before the show, some people are bosses, but they're not leaders. And I think that you've seen sometimes in positions today, as far as coaches who may be in positions of leadership or maybe bosses, but they're not leaders. So making it full circle as far as players getting hated on, as far as giving honest critiques, I think that if you really want to be better, I think that there's some truth in every comment. So I think you can just take the good from it, learn from it, grow from it, and the other, just leave it there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what you can do as a player, I guess, if you hear a critique and you're debating, okay, is this a critique to help me improve, or is this a critique where I feel like the coach is hating on me or something, stuff like that? I think like you should really just listen to the comments, see is there any truth to it? Is there anything I can do to improve? Is there anything that I see here? Maybe I don't like the messaging, but is the message effective and efficient to where it could be implemented into what I'm doing and it could help improve not only myself but the team as well. So I think first you gotta do that, but then there are situations where it can get out of line where okay, this is definitely even though this is a good message, it's like, okay, the message is not being received well. So I think you got to be careful, like you were saying, just having that effective leadership style and knowing how to talk with your players and how to talk just for the team overall in all aspects, not only with the team, but like with the upper management, with just all aspects of the team. I think there's definitely good ways to communicate, good ways to lead.
So moving the conversation forward in terms of it being hate or positive criticism, what if the perspective comes from your in-game celebrations? What if they're criticizing, how you dress on the sidelines or how you kind of participate in on-court celebrations? Do you think that's warranted or unwarranted?
I think there's certain situations. I think if we're gonna name names,
Oh, we name names. Okay. All right.
yeah,
Okay.
I
Okay.
guess there's some situations with Ja Morant and his celebration where because he's getting fined now for it, now it causes more of a distraction for the team. So there's a certain situation where, okay, now you've been warned. I think he was, for his situation, he was warned by the league to stop doing that specific celebration, and then he continued to do it. So that's what caused the fine. So I think there's some situations where it can hurt the team, but I think sometimes overall with some celebrations, it can help team around team chemistry and just help you as far as your mentality in the game, being able to remind yourself to have fun. So I think as long as it's done, celebrations done responsibly, and it's a situation where the league's approved of it, it's not something that's going to hurt your team or hurt the league. I think that's should be good, and that's important for team chemistry.
You're gonna have to title this episode dropping names. Okay. All right. Okay. Putting specifics. Okay. I mean, yeah, I mean, for me personally, I think it's a double-sided perspective, and it kind of depends on just kind of, I'm a hypocrite in this situation as far as where my perspective lies, because I'm always never want anybody to leave any money on the table. So I think that when you're doing actions to force you to give money back, negative, that's not ideal. But at the same time, if you understand the consequences of your actions and are okay with the consequences, who am I to tell you not to do something? So I think that it's a fine line as far as being who you want to be, as far as expressing how you want to express yourself, but also realize that you're still at a job. Think that a lot of times when you're in public facing careers that are non-traditional, not 9 to 5s, we forget that there's certain still a corporate level of decorum that you kind of got to walk through those walls with. I'm not saying that you have to, but it's ideally for you to advance if you do have those skills. So in terms of if a team is telling you to kind of will it in as far as your antics, they are your employer. So you have the choice to adhere or not adhere, and there's consequences for both. Just as long as the player understands both aspects and are comfortable with those consequences, who am I to judge kind of thing.